Welcome to this PowerLift refresher for LG Everest. This video will help to show you 5 different lifting techniques that you can use in a multitude of situations. We're going to teach you techniques that help you maintain a neutral spine and techniques that you can use in tandem with a buddy with mechanical devices that's going to help you be a better lifter, and it's information that you can use at work and at home. So when you get done, make sure to share the information you've learned.
In 2002, Terry Weston attended a seminar by Dr. Michael Schaefer, the creator of the PowerLift training program. At the seminar, Dr. Schaefer showed Terry how his painful back problems were due to a lifetime of poor lifting habits. He also explained the 5 PowerLift techniques that could help prevent future back injuries. Since then, Terry has become a certified PowerLift trainer and has given hundreds of seminars to businesses and organizations throughout the region. Today, Terry will review the 5 PowerLift techniques that have helped thousands of men and women to become safer, more effective lifters, both at work and at home. These techniques include the basic power lift, the PowerLift tip the load, the tripod lift, the lean bar, and the golfer's bend. By mastering these 5 techniques, you will be able to lift more effectively with less discomfort and will protect your back from injury for years to come.
And so if you're sitting out there and you're thinking, well, I don't have any back problems, this doesn't apply to me, why am I here? Well, you'll figure out real quickly that if you truly do not have any back problems at all, then you're blessed. I wouldn't hold out that the rest of your life is going to be back problem free, especially if you have a dad or a grandpa or an uncle that has a bad back. Because if you want to know what condition your back is going to be when you get to be their age, you don't have to look very far. They've got the same genetic makeup as you. They probably lift the same way as you. Just a matter of time. Unless you do something about it, that's what I'm going to show you today.
The condition of your back affects nearly everything you do. Your performance at work, as well as at home, and even during your valued recreational time, is all dependent on the strength and condition of your back. With serious injury to the back comes loss of earning power, which ultimately leads to a decline in your standard of living. Your ability to provide for yourself and your loved ones can never be entirely replaced by workers' compensation or disability insurance benefits.
Let's see, you get up, you got to pick up your skivvies and then your pants, and then you got to pull your socks on, and you got to put your shoes on, you got to pick up the paper, you got to pick up the towel. You might lift 60 times, you haven't even walked out of the house yet. And you're worried about what you're lifting at work. How you doing it? Just like this, guys, right? You think you're causing any damage to your lower back? Pulling your socks up like this, picking up a towel off the ground? Absolutely you are. Every single time you do it, you are. You only have so many repetitions. Don't use them all up before you turn 50, because some people have. This thing seems real strong for a while, and then it breaks on you. It tears ligaments. You have surgery. Can you do the things that you used to be able to do? Those of you that know exactly what I'm talking about from experience, nope, you can't.
There is a simple reason why back problems are so common: poor lifting technique. When we lift, our spine works much like a crane. The farther the load is from the base of our spine, the more force is required to lift it, in addition to the weight of our entire upper body. Here's an example of a typical back lift. As you can see, the distance between the load and the base of the spine is very long. This distance is referred to as the lever arm. The longer the lever arm, the more force is applied to the boom of the crane, which in the case of a human being is composed of fragile bones and tissues. This added strain results in a variety of problems, including torn ligaments and bulging discs. This damage often occurs gradually over time. Weakened by years of careless lifting, the slightest twist or strain can suddenly result in severe back injury.
Has anybody ever seen this technique before? Come close to the load, feet shoulder width apart, deep squat, straight back, lift with your legs, not with your back. Ever seen that technique before? I was showed that technique in 1994. I was working manufacturing. The physical therapist that was showing us that technique described it very, very well, and I'm thinking, how hard could that be? I mean, that makes perfect sense. And then I tried it. And I'm down here on the balls of my feet going, you know, if I had like 80, 90 pounds, there ain't no way in heck I'd be able to even budge from this position. It'll work for a paper clip and this and that and every once in a while. But if you picked up every single thing that you had to pick up off the ground throughout the course of a day, and you use that technique throughout the course of 20 years, what part of your body may have some aches and pains? Absolutely. You think your knees are designed to be down in a 60-degree knee bend with all that weight on them 5,000 times in a month? I mean, this sounded good, but I tried it and it doesn't work.
Let's take a closer look at the squat lift technique that most of us have been taught since childhood. The reason that most people don't lift this way is that it simply isn't an effective lifting position. The squat lift technique instructs us to approach a load straight on, put our feet shoulder width apart, and then lower ourselves to the object using our legs. Unfortunately, this often places our knees right in the way of the load. In order to take hold of the load, we are forced to tilt forward onto the balls of our feet, which is a weak and unstable position. The squat lift succeeds in keeping our spine in a neutral position, but it requires the knees to be bent to as much as a 65-degree angle where they have less strength and will experience increased wear and damage. Fortunately, there is a much safer lifting technique that is also easier and more effective.
A power lift is what we're teaching today. It's a technique that makes sense and works and has been taught and used since the beginning of time. Every single one of you guys use this for the first 3 years of your life religiously, all right? It looks something like this. That's all it is. Biomechanically, the most effective, most efficient, easiest way to lift weight. Every single weightlifter in the entire world lifts that way. It's angles, it's engineering. The body's the strongest in that position.
To create a basic power lift, approach the load from a 45-degree angle until you are standing directly over it, or as near to this position as possible. As you can see, this significantly reduces the lever arm, which greatly decreases the amount of force required to perform the lift. Try to straddle the load such that your toes actually extend beyond its corners. A wider than shoulder width stance prevents you from having to bend your knees to less than a 90-degree angle, which protects them from wear and offers great mechanical advantage. After taking hold of the load, lift your chin so that your face is tilted upwards throughout the lift. This locks your spine into a safe, neutral posture. That is why this familiar stance has been used throughout history by athletes of all sorts, including professional weightlifters. Now simply lift with your legs, raising the load like an elevator. As you transport the load, remember to maintain a short lever arm by holding the object as close to your body as possible. When the time comes to set the object down, simply reverse the steps of this or any other appropriate power lift technique. The simple principles behind this basic power lift form the basis for the entire power lift system.
When it comes to protecting your back, the easiest way to protect it is don't use it. If you can get a two-wheel cart, if you can get a forklift or an overhead hoist and eliminate the manual labor, that's going to be the best for everybody. But we're going to have to lift it ourselves sometimes, so we might as well do it properly. The first technique I'm going to show you is the basic power lift.
You're going to need 2 hands to lift it. You're going to use the big muscles on your body, and we're going to make it a lot easier on yourself. So on an object like this that has handles, we come and get a wide stance. You come down about a 100-degree knee bend, head up when you lift, bring the thing up. Now, when you're standing there, you've got this heavy object. Keep it close to yourself so when you walk off to your next task, you don't hurt your back in transition.
How many people here have helped somebody move or move themselves in the last 5 years? Did all the boxes have handles in them, right? So it's nice and easy for you to... No. No, you find yourself moving box after box after box, and none of the boxes have handles on them. So you're going to have to try a different technique, and I'm going to show you a different technique. We're still going to use the same body position with almost every lift that we have, because we know that that's about the best position you can be in, okay? But instead, we're going to walk up to this load. We're going to get close to it. We're going to come down here, and we're going to tip it up like this and create handles on this box that didn't have any, all right? And we're going to do it without having to dig our fingers underneath the bottom of the box. And we're just going to use the handles that are already on there in the form of corners.
When attempting to lift a load without handles, we are often tempted to take hold of it by bending all the way to the ground and digging our fingers underneath the object. The PowerLift Tip the Load saves us from this unnecessary back and knee strain by creating handholds on a variety of challenging loads. As with the basic PowerLift, you first position yourself as close to the load as possible and assume a wide stance. You will be tipping the load toward yourself, so make sure to stand such that your legs will not be in its way. Next, lower yourself just far enough to reach the top of the load and tip it inward. With the load tipped, simply grasp it by the corners and stand up. This technique works well on a wide variety of objects, including barrels, furniture, and handleless buckets.
Unfortunately, not all the things that you lift are going to have handles. When you work in a unique environment like this, where we have something like a cutting edge, we're going to have to try to create handles. And we do it by tipping. We use the same PowerLift technique, but we tip the load up to create the handles, keep it close to our body so that we have a short lever arm, easy to lift, easy to handle, less injuries to your back.
If I've got to dig my fingers underneath a heavy load, I'm coming down here to do it, okay? Because it'll be less pressure on my back, right guys? To get my fingers underneath this load when I'm down here. So I'll come and I'll scoop my fingers underneath this load and I'll just hoist it right up to my knee. Now that's not very difficult. Anyone in here could lift a lot more than this just to get it up under their knee. Now, this technique is called the tripod lift, all right? This technique is designed to take the weight of the load and have it help you to lift it off the ground. And I'll explain here in a second. All I have here is a big teeter-totter, okay? It may not look like one now, but that's all I am in this situation, is a teeter-totter. And that means that if I were to take all this weight and my body weight that's on this side of the fulcrum point, if I start to slide this past the end of the fulcrum point and I start to lean forward, then it should pull me right up off the ground, right? So if that's true, it should be easier to lift the 60-pound box than it would to be lifting the 30-pound box.
For challenging loads that have no usable handles and are too fragile or awkward to tip, the tripod lift can be especially helpful. You begin by placing one foot alongside the object and then lowering to your opposite knee. From this stable, neutral spine position, lift the load up onto your thigh. To stand up, simply extend the load outward from your body until the weight of the object itself helps lift you to your feet. This technique is also useful for situations in which the object you are lifting is not particularly heavy, but you are already down at ground level and simply need a comfortable way to rise to your feet.
You never know exactly what you're going to have to lift during the course of a day. In this situation, we've got a box of welding rods. So we're going to come down and use a tripod lift. That's where you come down, go ahead and get a 90-degree angle at the knee, get the load up onto our knee, and then we're going to actually let the weight of the load help us off the ground. Makes it a lot easier, a lot more effective.
If I've got to bring 5 bags of salt into the back of my car, that's the easy part. You know, you take them off the pile, you just drop them in there. It's the getting out that gets a little bit tougher. Now on a day like today, where we've got a nice solid surface, we can use a technique called lean bar. You walk up to the thing, you get a wide stance, you lean into this thing, and you pick it up. All right? You go to set it down, you're leaning into this case a bumper, and you're allowing it to prop you up and to maintain a neutral spine in a good lifting position. It's called lean bar, taking a load off.
Learning the lean bar technique will solve many difficult lifting challenges. The key is to lean your lower body into the object that lies between you and the load. The lean bar technique can only be used when the edge of the object you are leaning against is at the level of your hips or lower. Begin by assuming a wide stance, then leaning all of your weight into and against your support. By pivoting at the waist while maintaining constant pressure to the support with your legs, you are able to maintain a neutral spine throughout the lift. As always, the goal is to take your back out of the lift, relying instead on your much more powerful leg muscles.
What happens when you get into a situation where you're trying to pick up an object that's heavy, like this box of bolts, but it happens to be sitting on a shelf or a bench farther away from you? Let's try the lean bar. That lean bar technique uses the bench as something to prop ourselves against while keeping a neutral spine. We get the load close to us before we lift it, and then we make the lift. We're in a nice solid lifting position, and we don't have to worry about damaging our body.
Tell me a group of athletes that has to pick up light objects more than any other athlete, I mean just by far. Golfers, sure. If a professional golfer was picking their golf ball up like this every time they teed up a ball, putted in the putting green, into the cup 6 inches below ground, if they did it like this, would they be able to continue golfing through their 40s, their 50s, onto the senior tour? No. A golfer will walk up, and they'll put their weight on what? On their club, on their putter. They'll bend their front knee and they'll lift this back leg up. And they'll do that. Have you ever seen that technique before? Sure. You typically won't have a putter at work. You usually have something you can grab onto. All right? If you have nothing and you've got to pick something up off the ground, you can use a golfer's bend, but you would actually use a crossover golfer's bend. You would actually put your hand on your knee, you'd bridge your body weight right down your leg, and you'd be able to pick your leg up, your back leg up, and lift right up off the ground with absolutely no back pain at all. And it's these things that take most people out of the game.
The golfer's bend is a safe and comfortable way to lift small or inaccessible loads. This technique is commonly used by professional golfers to protect their backs from repetitive strain while constantly retrieving golf balls. The first goal of the golfer's bend is to transfer the weight of your upper body away from your spine and is accomplished by leaning your hand on any solid object, such as a countertop or the edge of a large container. The second goal is to maintain a neutral spine while lifting. This is achieved by extending one leg behind you as you lift, by allowing one leg to remain aligned with your spine rising up off the ground as you lift. All of the bending occurs at the opposite leg's hip. This is only possible if the leg you raise is on the same side of your body as the hand with which you are supporting yourself. In situations where there is no nearby object on which to lean, you can perform what is known as a freestanding golfer's bend. With the freestanding golfer's bend, you simply cross your support hand in front of your body and use the knee of your anchor leg to brace yourself.
If you stop and think about it, most of the things that you pick up throughout the course of the day at home and at work